Hello and a very warm welcome. Through the course of this video lecture, we will be looking at your General Awareness Class Assignment 4. Now, in General Awareness Class Assignment 4, we'll be covering important topics of awards, sports, science, banking awareness, world bodies. You get questions based on international and important world bodies, your other organizations. So, this will be a very important unit where we'll cover topics like science, banking awareness, sports, awards, and world bodies, right? So let's just quickly dive into the general awareness class assignment 4. We'll start first with the warm up exercise. You've got about 19 to 20 questions in the warm up exercise, and these questions are from history, they're questions from general awareness, they're questions from polity, and they're all important questions that you need to know about. And a couple of questions are there, one or two questions are there from brands also. So we will let's just quickly get started, and we'll look at all these aspects through the course of this session. Now, the first question that you have, who is known as the Punjab Kesari Lion of Punjab, right? So, who's known as Punjab Kesari or the Lion of Punjab? The correct answer is Lala Lajpat Rai, right? So, as you can see on your screen, also, this is the image of Lala Lajpat Rai. This is a quotation from Lala Lajpat Rai that if I had the power to influence Indian journals, I would have the following headlines printed in bold letters: milk for the infants, food for the adults, and education for all. So that's Lala Lajpat Rai, called as the Punjab Kesari. Right, so Lala Lajpat Rai, he's an Indian Punjabi author and politician. He's remembered for the fight for independence against the British Raj, and he's popularly got this cult name as Punjab Kesari or the Lion of Punjab. He's also called Shere Punjab in Punjabi, right? So you need to remember that Lala Lajpat Rai is the correct answer for this question, right? He is the Lion of Punjab. Lala Lajpat Rai is a Lion of Punjab, Shere Punjab, or Punjab Kesari. He's famously written this quotation: defeat and failure are sometimes necessary steps of victory. So even if you're not performing well in your mocks, you keep on taking that as a kind of a motivation that no, you will definitely score better in your main exams. Coming on to the next question, very simple yet important question. Who is popularly known as father of the Indian Constitution? You will definitely get questions from polity, and you need to remember that in polity, constitution plays a very important role, right? If you want in-depth, detailed knowledge also, you can refer to class 11th NCRT book on constitution. Otherwise, we will be covering most of the important points, and especially the points which are very important from your exam point of view related to polity. And we'll also revise polity, history, geography properly in a proper order as well later, after once when we are done with all the assignments, right? But still keep on revising, refreshing your memory. These are all important aspects, and if you have doubts in the videos, then you can definitely get back to us. So who's popularly known as father of Indian Constitution? So here it's very, very clear. B.R. Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, he's famously called as the father of the Indian Constitution. He's drafted a major bulk of it, right? So very, very important. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, a Dalit writer who rose to fame because he said that no, your caste should not determine your fate, right? He's called the father of the Indian Constitution, right? So popularly called as Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Dr. Bhim Rao Ramji Ambedkar, Bhim Rao Ramji Ambedkar. There was an exam in which they had mentioned what does R stand for in B.R. Ambedkar. R is Ramji. Bhim Rao Ramji. Many people get confused and they think it's Rao. No, it's Dr. Bhim Rao Ramji Ambedkar, right? Of course, very important person when we're talking about modern India, because he's the architect of modern India, because he framed the Indian Constitution, right? And he's saying education can actually be a force which can enable you to rise above all odds. So education for him was extremely crucial, right? Here when you talk about his main attempt was to eradicate the malpractice of untouchability and caste system, And he also changed, very important, some exams do ask this question, he also changed the working hours in India from 14 to 8 hours. So currently, after you will acquire your degree, you will start working, right? Or maybe you'll again further go for your masters and then you'll start working. So earlier, when people used to work, they used to have a 14-hour shift, all right? They used to have a 14-hour shift. But Baba Sahib Ambedkar or Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, he made that, he changed it, and he said, no, there has to be some time given to a person for himself or herself also. So therefore, he made the working hours from 14 to 8 hours. So now mostly companies have got 8 to 9 hours of work, 9 hours of work plus 1 hour, or that's including 1 hour of break, where he was the one who reduced the number of hours. And of course, his birthday is celebrated as Ambedkar Jayanti. And very famous line, men are mortal, so are ideas. An idea needs propagation as much as a plant needs watering, otherwise both will wither and die, right? So if in case you just keep on thinking and wondering that yes, I will study tomorrow, or tomorrow I will accomplish this, and you don't really act upon it, then it will be futile, it would not be a productive step. So this is what a very important quotation that B.R. Ambedkar had written, that until and unless you don't act on your decisions, you'll never be able to achieve them. And then those ideas, maybe they might be tallest of tall ideas, but then they're not at all helpful. Coming on to two important questions. Now, this is an important question, and I want you to add option 5 also in this question, okay? Your class assignment is only having 4 options, but I want you to add the 5th option also. Now, listen to this question correctly. Now, what is the maximum number of seats in the lower house of the parliament? Now, when we talk about the Indian system, right, in the Indian system, we are having the upper house and the lower house. It's a bicameral system. Bi means two. It's a bicameral system. We've got an upper house, the Rajya Sabha, which is the Council of States, Again, I'll repeat this. So we've got a bicameral system. We've got the Rajya Sabha and we've got the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is a house of people. And Rajya Sabha is a Council of States. Now, please remember, very important, in 2020, January 2020, we've had a constitutional amendment because of which now we are having the maximum number of Lok Sabha members to be 550. Therefore, I want you to add this option 5 in your class assignment, okay? I want you to add this option in your class assignment, option number 5, as 550. Now, why 550? See, earlier it was 552. It was 550 plus 2 Anglo-Indians. But now with the constitutional amendment, these two seats that we had for Anglo-Indians, this has been eliminated, okay? So now the correct answer is option number 5, which is not there in your booklet, so you can add it, 550. So the maximum number of seats in the lower house of the parliament can now, at present, if we speak about it, right, if you're talking about it, April 2020, then we need to remember that 550 is the correct answer. So what is the maximum number of seats in the lower house of the parliament? Lower house of the parliament, that is the House of the People. It's also called the House of the People. Rajya Sabha is called the Council of State. We'll just look at that. And currently, when we talk about the lower house of the parliament, it's having 543 members, okay? So look at the question correctly. Are they asking about the current members? And they'll never ask you the current members. Why? Why will they never ask you? Because that's not static every time. That might change. Maybe some minister decides that he will quit the party, or there's any decision taken for revamping the system. So it's very unpredictable. But they'll ask you questions about the static part, right? In these kind of questions. That doesn't mean that you won't get questions on general awareness. You will definitely get those. And we'll discuss also what kind of questions you'll get, okay? So what is the maximum number of seats in the lower house of the parliament? 550 is the correct answer. The Lok Sabha, which is also called the House of the People, this is the lower house of the Indian bicameral parliament. We've got a bicameral parliament system. Upper house is, of course, Rajya Sabha, also called the Council of States, all right? Now, when we talk about the members of the Lok Sabha, they are elected by people because people exercise their suffrage rights. Suffrage, suffrage, that is basically their voting rights. They are exercising, right? Anyone who's above 18 can cast a vote and select the the member of their choice, right? And they are elected for a period of 5 years. Rajya Sabha members, Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. Rajya Sabha is a permanent body and it's not dissolved. But one third of its members are changed every 2 years. One third of its members are changed every 2 years, right? So you need to remember this. And the House is, of course, meeting at the Sansad Bhavan, that is the Lok Sabha chamber. Sansad Bhavan is the Lok Sabha chambers. Please remember that. Now, very important, the maximum strength of the House allotted by the Indian Constitution is 550. 550. It used to be 552 with two members of the Anglo-Indian community, but with the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act 2009. So on 9th December 2019, this was actually raised, and now it's a proper, so in January 2020, this became a proper constitutional amendment which eliminated 2 seats for the Anglo-Indians, and now the maximum capacity, the maximum number of seats in the lower house of the parliament is 552. So remember a couple of things, right? Do remember that now the maximum strength of Lok Sabha is 550. Do remember the 104th constitutional amendment, which has made the maximum number of Lok Sabha members from 552 to 550. Remember this. Remember that the Lok Sabha members are elected by people using their universal suffrage rights, and these people are meeting at the Sansad Bhavan in New Delhi, and the Lok Sabha is dissolved every 5 years, okay, and the Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. So these are some things that you need to keep in mind, okay. Do remember this. So now the maximum capacity is 550. What is the maximum number of seats in the upper house of the parliament? The upper house of the parliament is the Rajya Sabha. This is also called the Council of States, and the Rajya Sabha is a permanent body and it will not get dissolved. First of all, get that in your head correctly. We've been discussing this now for quite some time, and the maximum number of seats in the upper house of the parliament is 250, right? The maximum number of seats in the upper house of the parliament is 250. So Rajya Sabha, also called the Council of the States or the Upper House of the Indian Parliament. Article 80 of the Constitution says, you can even remember this, sometimes in some of your intricate exams they ask you this question. So in Article 80 of the Indian Constitution, we have that the maximum strength of Rajya Sabha can be 250. The maximum strength of Rajya Sabha can be 250, out of which 12 members are nominated by the President, and 238 members are representatives of states and the 2 union territories, okay. Do remember this, all right. So 2 union territories are only there, and please remember this is based on the population of each state. The membership is decided. So the maximum number of seats in the upper house of the parliament or the Council of State, the permanent body of the Indian bicameral system, the Rajya Sabha, is 250, which is stated in the Article 80. Okay, so of course you've got the Indian Parliament consisting of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and the President. Rajya Sabha is the upper house or the Council of States. It's called the Council of States. Remember this also. Now, very important, please pay attention to this fact. Now, when you talk about the origin of Rajya Sabha is actually starting with the Montagu-Chelmsford report in 1980. Okay, what you need to remember that it was established for the first time in 1921. It was established for the first time in 1921. The first Rajya Sabha was convened in 1952 in independent India. Okay, so it was first established in 1921, but the first meeting was convened, the first Rajya Sabha is a meeting, was there in 1952. Okay, the maximum strength we've already discussed is 250, out of which 238 are representatives of state and 12 members are nominated by the president. These members are coming from literature, science, art, social service. That's how you've got Rajya Sabha members, like, previously Rekha has been a Rajya Sabha member, Sachin Tendulkar has been a Rajya Sabha member. These were the nominated members, right? They were not the elected representatives, they were not the representatives of states. They were the nominated members by the president, all right, who were coming from fields of literature, art, social service, and science. Remember these fields also. Okay, the current strength that we have is 245, 233 are from states and union territories, and 12 are people nominated by the president. Okay, currently when we talk about the representation will be according to the population. So Uttar Pradesh is having the maximum representation in the Rajya Sabha, followed by Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. And Delhi and Puducherry are the only two union territories who've got a representation in the Rajya Sabha. So you can get these questions. Remember, maximum strength is 250. Remember that the states are having 238 representatives out of 250, and 12 people are elected by the president, who are coming from the field of literature, science, art, and social science. And please remember that these 238 representatives are representatives of states and two union territories, and what are those two union territories? New Delhi, Delhi NCR, and Puducherry. There have been questions that have been asked that out of the 238 members who are representatives of states and two union territories, which are the two union territories from which members of Rajya Sabha are elected, or they are selected? You need to remember Delhi and Puducherry. Okay, so do remember this. If there are any doubts in this, do ask, because these are direct questions that are asked in your exams, and you need to be full-fledgedly well versed with these questions. They need to be on your fingertips. Okay, which is the second highest mountain peak in the world? K2 is the correct answer. At least remember the top three mountain peaks in the world. You've got Mount Everest, then you've got the K2, and then you've got the Kanchenjunga. What used to happen earlier, people used to think Kanchenjunga is the highest mountain peak, but later when people did calculations, they came to know that it was Mount Everest, followed by K2. K2 is the second highest mountain peak, and the third is Kanchenjunga. Okay, so do remember, these are the top three important mountain peaks that we are having. The second highest mountain peak is K2. This is called a savage mountain. K2 is called a savage mountain. Why? Because out of the 5 people who will climb, one will definitely die. All right, it's a very difficult climbing that you need to undertake in order to reach the peak of K2. So therefore it's called a savage mountain. That means it kills everyone. Okay, and it's believed that when you talk about Mount Everest, in Mount Everest there are about 200 bodies of humans, and they are exactly in the same form as people that died, because it's so cold there. It's very chilling. All right, it's extremely chilling a reality to even hear this. Okay, so the second highest mountain peak in the world is K2. Highest mountain peak in the world, that's Mount Everest. They will never give you this question because everyone knows the correct answer for this. However, you can know certain other things about Everest, like the border that is there of Mount Everest, that's between Nepal and Tibet, all right, not the Tibet which is a part of China, but the Tibet which is autonomous. Okay, so when you talk about Mount Everest, the borders between Nepal and Tibet, and the first important climbers of this peak was Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norway in 1953. Remember that. And like I told you, that this is a well-known fact that there are about 200 dead bodies on Everest, and all of them are preserved because it's very cold. It's very cold out there. And also remember, Everest is a part of the 7 summits. Now, what is 7 summits? Now, each continent is having one peak, which is the highest peak in that continent. So it is every mountaineer's dream that they want to complete the 7 summit. That means they want to climb every peak in every continent, which is the highest, right? So Everest is also part of the 7 summits, which is a list of mountains in almost all the 7 continents, right? And climbing all these mountains is the ultimate dream of any mountaineer. Now K2, that, like I told you, it's called the Savage Mountain. Why is it called the Savage Mountain? Because there's definitely a death of every 4 successful climbs. So it's a very, very savage mountain. And K2, which is officially known as the Mount Godwin Austen. Okay, or the Choguri. You can remember these names also. This is 8,611 meters above the sea level. The border is between China, and Pakistan. All right. The Chinese side is very, very hard to climb, and therefore people usually who are going to who are mountaineers, they usually prefer the Pakistan side of K2. Okay. Mount Godwin Austen or the Chowgiri. This is the second highest mountain peak called the Savage Mountain. And Kanchenjunga, an interesting fact, Kanchenjunga is actually, it was earlier, before Mount Everest was properly considered to be the highest mountain peak. People used to think Kanchenjunga is the highest mountain peak. But later, when people had done calculations, then they came to know that this is the third highest mountain peak in the entire world. Okay. And the borders between Nepal and India, right? You can remember that. When you talk about Kanchenjunga is the second highest mountain in the Himalayas. All right, second highest in the Himalayas. So you can just remember this. This is important. And like I told you, until 1852, people used to think that Kanchenjunga is the highest mountain peak. What was the name of the first artificial satellite that was launched by Russia? What was the name of the first artificial satellite that was launched by Russia? Now, Russia had actually launched Sputnik 1, and at that time, what was happening? There was a war between Russia, that was the USSR, the Soviet, and the United States of America. And therefore, United States of America got very worried that, oh, they've already launched their space satellite, their artificial satellite, right? So they got very scared, and they also started making their own version. But you can remember the name of the first artificial satellite that was launched by Russia. That was the Sputnik 1. Okay, it was Sputnik 1. So Sputnik 1, it was way back in 1957, and this inaugurated their space age. With Sputnik 1, Russia actually inaugurated their space age. So on 4th October 1957, 4th October 1957, the Soviet Union stunned everyone by launching the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1. And this, of course, was something that, you can see this word fledgling, right? You can see fledgling USA. Fledgling is someone who is very immature, very new. So fledgling, we use the word fledgling for them. Someone who's immature, someone who's new. Remember in verbal ability class assignment 2, you had the word neophyte, a beginner. So fledgling is a synonym of the word neophyte or a beginner. Keep on revising, that's important. Okay, so Sputnik 1 is what launched Russia on the space age map. Okay, innovation and you is the tagline of which company? We've actually done this when we talk about general awareness class assignment 2. Now when you talk about innovation and you is a tagline of Philips, right? And Philips has got a target that by 2025 they want to double their customer base, right? By 2025 they want to double their customer base, and therefore they revamped their entire campaign, and that's how you got the tagline innovation and you are important for them. Innovation and you, that is Philips, right? So innovation and you is a new slogan that is used for Philips, right? And this is starting with their new goal for making sure that they are able to double their digits, right? They are able to double their reach by 2025. They want to reach out to 3 billion people for their products, right? So innovation and you is Philips. The banker to every Indian. The banker to every Indian is the tagline of State Bank of India. So State Bank of India got this strategy. They got this tagline, banker to every Indian. That means they are a bank which is available to any and every Indian. So Har Bharatiya ka bank, Har Bharatiya ka bank. So Bharatiya State Bank ya State Bank of India. This is a tagline. You can remember the banker to every Indian. It was a very famous campaign, the banker to every Indian. This is the tagline of the State Bank of India or Bharatiya State Bank. Okay, Har Bharatiya ka bank. The headquarters of PepsiCo is located at. So the current headquarters of PepsiCo is located in Purchase, New York. Purchase, New York is the correct answer here. You need to remember that the current headquarters of PepsiCo is located at Purchase, New York. Option 3, right? So it is having its new headquarters in Purchase, New York. This is one of the largest soft drink manufacturers in the world. PepsiCo's Chicago office is now looking at the Quaker division, Quaker Oats division, right? And of course, the company is made up of three business divisions: PepsiCo American Foods, PepsiCo American Beverages, and PepsiCo International. So you've got PepsiCo American Foods, PepsiCo American Beverages, and PepsiCo International, right? They, of course, have sodas, juices, coffees, cereals, teas, you name it. In the food industry, they really have it, right? So this is what you need to remember. Business India magazine belongs to which company, group, or person? Business India is basically a party that's being this venture is of Ashok Advani and his brother. So you need to remember that option number 4, Ashok Advani, is the correct answer for this. This is a kind of a good magazine. You can definitely refer to it for all your business related news. Of course, there are other magazines also related to business where you can get your news. But yeah, this is also pretty credible. Otherwise, if you want to enhance your knowledge in business awareness, I would recommend that you read the Mint. The Mint is a newspaper by the Hindustan Times. In a very lucid manner, in a very easy manner, they will explain important things. Even if you're new to banking awareness, even if you don't really have a lot of idea for banking awareness, you'll get a hold of it. So Mint is a paper, but of course Business India is also a magazine that belongs to the Ashok Advani group. Okay, the Ashok Advani group. So Business India, this is a fortnightly, so it comes every 2 weeks. This is a fortnightly business news magazine, and this was founded by Ashok Hochchand Advani, Hero Advani, and Rajkumar Advani. Okay, so Ashok Hochchand Advani, Hero Advani, and Rajkumar Advani. In 1978, it was published in Mumbai, and in 2001, the magazine had a circulation of 88,100 copies, right? And this, of course, increased to about 5,26,000 copies in 2006, right? It's of course considered to be one of the most credible sources when you talk about the Indian business magazine. So Business India, important, credible. But like I said, if you want to literally go through your concepts, Mint newspaper is always very handy. And of course, later Economic Times. Economic Times explains it slightly in a difficult language. So Mint becomes far more easier to grasp. That's the only difference, okay? All right, so let's just quickly go on. So this is Business India, which is a part of the Advani group, Advani brothers, Ashok Advani, Ashok Hochchand Advani being important. Which FMCG major owns a beverage brand? Real is by Dabur, okay? Dabur is known for its Ayurvedic products, right? So you need to remember that Dabur is the correct answer. So option number 3 is the correct answer. So when we talk about food manufacturing companies, right, the food manufacturing fast moving consumer goods, as they're called, FMCG is your fast moving consumer goods segment. So when you talk about the real beverage, that you can see on your screen also, this is basically a product of Dabur. Dabur is real juice. Dabur is the science of Ayurveda. Dabur is basically the science of Ayurveda. You got the Dabur Prash, which many people are saying you must eat in order to build immunity. Then you got Dabur, right? So please remember, the real juice that you have is of Daburs. Which of the following is the correct description of the capital market? Now, when you talk about capital market is a place where people who can give money are giving it to people who need money. So it is a place where you can actually get your transactions done. And people who are giving money, they're giving money in lieu of bonds, they're giving money in lieu of stocks, right, that they're getting. So please remember, and this is a question which is often asked in your banking related exams also, not just in your undergraduate exams, but also sometimes in your banking related exams also. So it's an important question. Which of the following is the correct description of the capital market? So capital market is basically your stock and bonds market. Why is it called stock and bonds market? Because there is a transaction that is taking place between people who want to give money and people who want to receive money. And when you talk about this market, people who are giving money in lieu of, they're giving money in exchange of stocks and bond. Therefore, it is called stock and bonds market also. So option 1 is the correct answer. That which of the following is correct description of the capital market? Which of the following is the correct description of capital market? So stock markets and bond markets, that's the correct answer. Okay, this is important. Remember this. So, capital market is basically concerned with raising capital. They want to raise capital. They're dealing in shares, bonds, and long term investments. So capital markets is place where people are literally that there's basically a movement, a transaction between suppliers of capital, as you can see here on point number one, supplier of capital and those who need capital, right? And when you talk about the suppliers of capital, they're getting stock and they're getting bond in exchange of it, right? So mostly most capital markets are stock market and the bond market, stock market and the bond market. Okay, do remember. So the first and the last points are important. Which of the following is not a mode of foreign capital inflow? Now, foreign direct investment is a foreign capital inflow. We'll just see this also. NRI deposits are also part of foreign capital inflow in India, right? When I talk about the FII, this is also a part of your foreign capital inflow. So none of these is the correct answer here. Okay, let's look at some of them. FDI is your foreign direct investments. These are investments which are made by one company into another company which is located in a different country altogether, right? So, for example, you've got Apple's investment in China as an example of foreign direct investment, right? So this is definitely getting money inside a different nation. So even FDI in India is getting cash flow inside India. And when you talk about FII is a foreign institutional investor. This is a foreign institutional investor. And when we speak about the FII, when we talk about the FII, the foreign institutional investor, this is an investor in the financial market which is outside official home country, right? So a foreign institutional investor is an investor in a financial market outside your official home country, so this is also ensuring that there's an inflow in the foreign country. So for example, India becomes a foreign country, so there is inflow coming in India also. So foreign institutional investor, FRI, NRI deposits, then your foreign direct investments, they are all ensuring that there is foreign capital inflow in India. So none of these was the correct answer. If you have any doubts, do let us know. Now, many a times we read the term CBS used in banking operations. What is the full form of the letter C? Now, when we talk about C, C is actually standing for core. CBS stands for core banking solutions. Core banking solutions or centralized banking solutions. CBS is standing for core banking solutions or centralized banking solutions, right? Core banking solutions or centralized banking solutions. Now, this is basically a process which is completed in a centralized environment, right? So the CBS that you have is the core banking solutions or the centralized banking solutions. Okay, do remember, this is important. Okay, where would you find the Great Barrier Reef? Great Barrier Reef is a very popular tourist attraction in the Australia. So when you talk about Australia, Australia is having the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef. So the Great Barrier Reef, which is the world's largest coral reef system, is there in the coast of Queensland, Australia. On the coast of Queensland, Australia. Please remember the Great Barrier Reef. This is the largest coral reef which is found in Australia. So this is basically 2,300 kilometer. The Great Barrier Reef. You can see an image of the Great Barrier Reef over here. You can swim, you can snorkel, dive, sail over here across, right? The present Indian monetary system is based on. When you talk about the present Indian monetary system, this is based on the minimum reserve system. All right, this is based on the minimum reserve system. The current monetary system in India is based on the minimum reserve system. Okay, on the minimum reserve system. So you can remember this on the minimum reserve system. So for the issue of currencies, the RBI follows the minimum reserve system currently. The MRS has been followed all the way from 1956 onwards. And when you talk about the minimum reserve system, the RBI has to keep a minimum reserve of 200 crore comprising of gold coin, gold bullion, foreign currencies. That's basically the minimum. This is the reserve that they have to keep. No choice at all whatsoever. And over and above, they can probably do their transactions. So that's the minimum reserve system, which is there as a part of your Indian monetary system. Who's the author of the book The Audacity of Hope? The Audacity of Hope was a book written by Barack Obama. At that time, Obama was not the president of United States of America. Remember that. It was way before he became the president. He was just one of the mayor leaders there. Okay, he wasn't the president though. So The Audacity of Hope is written by Barack Obama. He talks about spirituality in this book. He's talking about other important aspects, and he also talks about his heartbreak in politics. Okay, in this book, The Audacity of Hope. This is the second book, though. This is the second book that he had written. So you can remember this, and of course, this became one of the best international bestsellers in 2006. And this was, of course, one of the most important subject in his 2008 election campaign, also. All right. Which of the following is the tallest building of the world? The Burj Khalifa, which is 828 meters long, is one of the tallest buildings of the world, right? So when you talk about the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, this was completed in 2010. The Burj Khalifa with 828 meters is one of the tallest buildings of the world. Beautiful sight if you look at it. So that Burj Khalifa is the correct answer. What does the URL stands for? URL is your Uniform Resource Locator. When you use the address bar, you have to input the address of the website. This is a website locator. So this is a Uniform Resource Locator. That's the full form of URL. And what is this? This is also called web address, right? And the URL is basically something which looks like, as you can see, http www.example.com. So this is what a URL is. That's your Uniform Resource Locator. So here we have looked at your warm-up exercise. If there are any doubts, any problems in any of the questions, please do get those back. Remember, history, polity, brand awareness, banking awareness, issues that are current, important static GK questions like the tallest building, the most important or the largest coral reefs in the world. These are definitely questions that you need to remember. Taglines are also equally important. If there are any questions, any doubts, please do get back to us. Thank you so much. Hello and a very warm welcome. We are looking at General Awareness Class Assignment 4, and today we'll be discussing about banking awareness. Now please remember, in most of your undergraduate entrances you will be getting a question related to banking awareness. Banking awareness, as the word itself suggests, are you aware about the important aspects which are taking place in the banking sector? Are you cognizant? Are you ensuring that you are up to date with important organizations, with important concepts that are associated with the banking sector? Now, please remember, whenever we talk about a bank, the primary function of any bank is just to accept deposits and provide loans. That's the primary function. And the secondary function is to get profit out of it, right? There are certain things that you have to keep in mind, that there is a history of banking sector in India. You get questions based on that. For example, which is the first Swadeshi bank, which is the first ever bank which was managed by Indians, what is the name of the Imperial Bank of India now, certain taglines of certain important banks like the Punjab National Bank. What is the tagline of Punjab National Bank? The name you can bank upon, that's the tagline for Punjab National Bank. So these are the kind of questions that you usually get in banking awareness section. All right, so you need to know about the history of banks, you need to know about the history of the banking structure. You also need to be aware about, the important dates when they were there, especially some important dates that we'll be discussing. Then you need to know the taglines of certain banks. You need to know the bank of all banks, that's the RBI. That's extremely crucial. You also need to have some knowledge of the stock markets when you're talking about banking awareness. Okay, so stock markets, RBI, the history of Indian banking sector, taglines of certain banks. These are the four important things, and of course, there'll be other few things that you need to retain in banking awareness. Over here, we'll cover the questions which are a part of your general awareness class assignment 4. So let's just quickly get started. Now, currency is also equally important, and it's a part of your entire banking awareness segment. Which of the following currency is the costliest? Now, many times we think that it's actually the British pound sterling, which is the costliest currency, or we think that the American dollar is the costliest currency, because many a times we are looking at the currency rates via dollar, American dollar. But let me just tell you that's absolutely incorrect, because the world's most costliest currency is the Kuwaitian dinar. And over here, when you look at the options, then Bahrain is an island country, right? Bahraini dinar is, from the options that are given to you, Bahraini dinar is the costliest currency. So it's not US dollar, it's not British pound sterling, it is actually Bahraini dinar over here. And the world's most costliest currency that you have is Kuwaitian dinar. Kuwait and Bahrain are important oil exporting countries, right? So they get a lot of money from there. And Bahrain is also famous for its pearl exports, right? So let's just quickly look at the answer. So many people, like I told you, we think it's either the British pound sterling, or we think that the American dollar is the most costliest currency. But please remember that it's not the correct answer. You've got the Kuwaitian dinar as the world's most costliest currency at the present, and of course followed by Bahrainian dinar. Then there's a currency of Oman, there's a currency of Jordan. Finally, you've got at the fifth spot as British pound sterling. These of course they fluctuate, but by and large the rankings do remain the same. Okay, do remember that. So the first one, like I told you, is Kuwaitian dinar. You need to know about the currency. So one Kuwaitian dinar is approximately 3.29 US dollars. That keeps on fluctuating. This keeps on fluctuating, but you need to remember. So Kuwait is a very small country, and it has got enormous wealth, right? It has got oil exports, from which it's deriving a lot of money, and therefore you have got the Kuwaitian dinar to be one of the highest currencies in the world. Rather, it's the highest currency in the world. So do remember that. Okay. Of course, they've got a very stable petroleum-based economy, and they export oil-based products, right? And more than 80% of the country's revenue is coming from the oil industry only. And of course, they've got a very stable economy where it's a tax free country. Even the unemployment rates are very low. So these are some aspects that makes the Kuwaitian dinar to be very, very powerful. So Kuwaitian dinar is the world's most expensive currency. This is how a Kuwaitian dinar looks like. This is 20 Kuwaitian dinars. So it's the world's most expensive currency. Bahraini dinar or Bahrain dinar, this is also the second most valuable currency. So from the options that were given to you, Bahraini dinar was the correct answer. Many people, if they've not revised their concepts, they go ahead and mark US dollar or the British pound sterling. But please remember, those are not the correct answers. You need to be aware, you need to be having a proper idea of the currencies, which are the top few currencies in the entire world. That's important. Bahrain is an island state, like I told you, and it's just got a 1 million population capacity. And of course, it's having its income from black gold exports. The oil exports are also there, right? Then you've got the British pound sterling at the fifth spot. So British pound sterling is at the fifth spot. Many people think that it's actually the British pound sterling that's the strongest currency, but you need to remember that no, it's actually, so you've got the Kuwaitian dinar, you've got the Bahraini dinar, you have Oman, you've got Jordan, and then on the fifth spot you have the British pound sterling. Okay, so do remember this. Moving on to the next question, issuing of credit cards is a component of. Now, when you have to issue credit cards, right? When you have to issue credit cards, so issuing of credit cards is a component of. This is a component of retail banking, okay? This is a component of retail banking. When we talk about issuing of credit cards, this comes under the rubric of retail banking. So, retail banking is the correct answer here. Retail banking is also called consumer banking. That means, for example, if today I want to buy a refrigerator, or if I want to buy an air conditioner, or if I want to buy a car, or if I want to buy a house, I will be taking loan for that, right? And if I want to take loan for smaller consumer based articles, I can always have a credit card handy. So therefore, whenever we talk about credit cards, they are a part of your retail banking system or the consumer banking system, right? So you need to remember that the common retail banking services are, of course, credit cards, auto loans, saving accounts, mortgages. These are all a part of your retail banking or consumer banking. The things that normal consumers would need, right? For example, if you want to probably go to another institution, you might just take, if it's expensive, you might take an education loan, right? So similarly, if there are things that you want to purchase, you will take consumer based loans or retail banking, right? You will depend upon that. So credit cards, when we talk about credit cards, issuing of credit cards is a component of retail banking or consumer banking. So what is a credit card? Credit card is basically a plastic card or plastic money. This is plastic money that you have, and you can actually make purchases using the card for a specified time period, right? You've got a grace period. You have to return back the money, right? So credit card doesn't mean that the bank is paying for you. Credit card only means that the bank is paying for you and you have to repay the bank after a grace period. If you don't pay within the stipulated time, then there will be interest charged, right? So as you can see over here on your screens also, that typically you've got this grace period of 30 to 45 days. Some exams have asked this question, that what is the grace period? Grace period is 30 to 45 days. That's your cycle. That's called your cycle, right? So if the used credit card is cleared on time, there's no interest that's charged. That means if you repay the amount within the grace period time, there's no interest that you have to pay. But if you do not pay at the correct time, then obviously you have to pay the interest, right? So you need to remember that retail banking is responsible for issuing of credit cards. Moving on to the next question, which of the following is not a type of check? Now, types of checks, they're also important. So do remember, this is an important question which comes many a times in your banking awareness unit. You've got the bearer check. We'll just discuss all of these. So bearer check, if I have an account in a bank and I am only issuing a check for myself, that's a bearer check, okay? So for example, if my name is, say, Nirja, and I probably am issuing a check, right? And I'm issuing the check from my bank account, that'll be a bearer check. An account payee check is when I want the check to be transferred to another person's bank account only bank account, right? Not it cannot be withdrawn for cash. Cancel check is a check where you literally cancel it, right? It's used for documentation processes. Running check is the correct answer. There's no running check, okay? There's no concept of running check. So which of the following is not a type of check? Running check becomes the correct answer. Let's look at the entire question in detail, because you do get these kind of questions and you need to be aware about them. So a check, what is a check? Check is basically a piece of paper that you have that is signed by the person who's got an account in the bank, requesting the bank to pay a certain sum of money. All right. And to whom you want to pay, that is also mentioned on the check, right? So this becomes important. Now, the types of checks that you have, you need to be aware about them. There's a bearer check. Bearer check, I told you the same case. For example, if you want to withdraw money from your own bank account, right? So just imagine if you have a bank account and you want to withdraw money for yourself, or you've gone to withdraw money yourself, right? And you're issuing a check. So you will create a bearer check. You can also write down self in a bearer check, right? There's an example over here that Ram has a savings account in HDFC Bank. He brought a check from his checkbook to the HDFC Bank branch where he has an account. So he can present the check to the bank and withdraw money. This is called the bearer check, right? So it's bearing the name of the person. So this is the bearer's check. Order check. Order checks are basically they are made for making payment to someone else. Say for example, if I for example, if my name is A and I have written a check for person B, right? So that is an order check. So person B can go to my bank and say that, hey, look, I want this much of money, and the person will get that amount. Why will that person get the amount? Because this is an order check, right? For example, if Ram is having a savings account in HDFC and he wants to make a payment of 1 lakh rupees to Sham, so Ram can give Sham a check, and that'll be called an order check. So Sham can just go to the bank and get the check, right? Get the amount withdrawn. So that's the order check. So bearer check when Ram was taking the money himself. Order check when he's given an order to someone else, or he's given the amount to someone else. The other person having the check can also take out the money. Crossed check, where you make two lines. When you make two lines at the top of the check, at the top left side of the check, you're making these two lines. That's called a crossed check, right? I will show it to you in some time, an image also of a crossed check. And this means that you can only and only get the amount transferred to a bank account. You cannot make a cash payment if it's a crossed check, right? So you cannot withdraw money. If I probably have an order check, I can go to the bank and say I want cash for this check. But when in the case of a crossed check, I can't really do that, right? In case of a crossed check, I can't really do that. So I can't get any cash payments at all. So this is how a cross check looks like. If you can just see that towards the left hand side, there's a crossed check mark made. So that means Ankit Sharma can only and only get the amount transferred, 37,000 transferred to his account. He cannot take money. He cannot get cash in return of this crossed check. Okay. Account pay check. If there are any doubts in any of the parts, please do let us know. An account pay check is very similar to a crossed check, okay? So you can also remember account payee is just like over here I was crossing the check. I can also write down account payee. I can also write down account pay, AC payee, PAYEE payee. Now when I do that, what's the difference then between a cross check and an account pay check? See, basically in a crossed check, I can still transfer the check, okay? Cross check can be they can be endorsed to other parties also, okay? But when you talk about the account pay checks, they only have to be transferred to the account of the person, right? Whose name I've mentioned on the check. Can you see the difference? For example, this check, which is a cross check, right? So I can endorse this check. Ankit Sharma can endorse this check and give it to some other person, right? But an account pay check will not be transferred. This has to go to Ankit Sharma's account only. Okay, so that's the subtle difference. That's a very thin difference between an account pay or when we talk about the crossed check. Okay, if there are doubts, please do remember to ask. Otherwise, you can also sit with your parents, discuss with them about all these things. They'll help you better because they keep on going to the banks and they're dealing with all these details. These are very simple facts. Okay, so do remember these. Then a stale check. A stale check, if the check has been, for example, if I've written the date on the check as 2nd April 2020, all right, so it is only valid for the next 3 months. That means the person has got the next 3 months. If the person is submitting the check that I've issued today, right, if I've issued the check today, and if the person is taking it out maybe say on 4th October 2020, it'll be a stale check because it's more than 3 months. It's been more than 3 months. So, stale check, if a check is not presented to the bank within 3 months from the date of issue, okay, that is called a stale check. Post dated check, when I probably, if today is 2nd April 2020, all right, and I probably say that okay, there is a lockdown going on, maybe my bank might not have that much amount, so I'm giving you a post dated check because I might be getting money in my account by say the 17th of April 2020. So I give you a post dated check for 17th April today on 2nd April 2020. So that's a post dated check, right? So you're giving the withdrawal date to be a later date. All right. Similarly, you've got an antedated check. An antedated check is basically a check. So, for example, if you've got a date entered on the check which is prior to the current date, it is an ante. Ante root word means before. Ante root word means before. So it is a before dated check, right? So that is an antedated check. Antedated check. So I hope that's clear. So running check was the correct answer. There's no such concept as running check. You've got an account pay check, you've got a crossed check, you've got a bearer's check, right? Stale check. The other options were all correct, but running check was an incorrect option. Which of the following countries has not accepted euro as its main currency? Again, Brexit, European crisis, the entire euro controversy. These are also important topics and they've been making headlines, so they can also come in your entrances. Okay. Now, when you talk about, there are three important nations, all right, who have not accepted euro as their main currency. And from the list that you have in front of you, United Kingdom is the correct answer here. Okay, that's how United Kingdom also had this entire controversial Brexit, that is British exit from the Euro nations, right? So what is this Euro nations that we are talking about? See, there is this entire concept of a composite European Union, right? And there are a total of 19 out of the 28 members of the European Union, right, who have accepted euro as their official currency. They have accepted the euro as their official currency. And these countries include Austria, Belgium, Cyprus, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy. You've got Malta, Netherlands, Portugal, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain. All these are very important countries which have accepted the euro as their common currency. Okay, there are certain people who are not a member of the European Union and they've also accepted euro as their currency, such as the Vatican City. You've got Kosovo, Andorra. All right, so these are also certain countries which are not a part of, they're non-EU members, they're not European Union members, but they've still accepted the currency. But when you talk about members who have not accepted the currency, United Kingdom, Denmark and Sweden, United Kingdom, Denmark and Sweden, they have not decided, they have not taken in the euro as a common currency, and they have decided to stick with their own legacy currencies, right? So you need to remember this. So of course, United Kingdom was the correct answer there. So this is something that you can remember. And there are currently 27 nations in the European Union, because Britain, of course, has got the exit, so it's no more 28. And 8 countries are not in the Eurozone. So you can remember that Eurozone, that's having the European currency. And Brexit is basically British exit from the European Union. There's been a lot of chaos. So earlier you had David Cameron as the Prime Minister. He asked for a referendum, right, to remain in the European Union. And that did not really succeed, so he resigned. Theresa May came to power. She replaced Cameron. but that was again very futile. Why? Because now she's also been replaced. She's also resigned, and Boris Johnson currently he was earlier the foreign minister. He has now been elected as a prime minister. So because of this Brexit controversy in very tough times, right? These leaders had actually come to power. So this is a very controversial topic of British exit. Now, what Britain does is that Britain always has referendums. All right, these are basically mass voting of people. People vote that whether they support a decision or not. Okay, so there are referendums. There's a Scotland referendum, which is very famous in Britain. Then there is, of course, a Brexit referendum, and that's created a lot of ruckus in the entire United Kingdom, in the country, in the United Kingdom country. So you need to remember. But currently, Boris Johnson is the leader there. All right, coming on to the next question, which is important. Which of the following bank was called the Imperial Bank of India? The Imperial Bank of India got renamed as the State Bank of India. And remember, we've already discussed that the State Bank of India has got the tagline, the banker to every Indian. Har Bharatiya ka bank, the banker to every Indian, is a tagline of State Bank of India. So when you talk about the Imperial Bank of India, so earlier State Bank of India was called the Imperial Bank of India. Earlier State Bank of India was called the Imperial Bank of India, and on the 1st of July 1955, the Imperial Bank of India became the State Bank of India. Okay, it became the State Bank of India, and so the previous name of the banker to every Indian was Imperial Bank of India. This Imperial Bank of India became State Bank of India after independence. It became State Bank of India after independence. So you can remember that Imperial Bank of India was there. So Imperial Bank of India was renamed as the State Bank of India. You can also remember certain important points over here. I would want you to remember these points. We shall be discussing it later also when we revise all the components, right, after completing all these class assignments. But nevertheless, I would want you to remember certain points, okay? The Bank of Hindustan was the first bank to be established in India. The Bank of Hindustan was the first ever bank established in India in 1770. Then, of course, you need to remember 2 or 3 other points. The first bank which was managed completely by Indians, managed completely by Indians, was a Punjab National Bank. But the first bank which was managed as well as controlled as well as owned by Indians was the Central Bank of India. And because not only was it managed but also owned and controlled by Indians, right, therefore the Central Bank of India is called the first Swadeshi Bank. So do remember these questions also. These are a part of history of banking. Okay, so you need to remember that when we talk about the State Bank of India, the banker to every Indian, the tagline of State Bank of India, this was earlier called the Imperial Bank of India. The second point that you need to remember, that the first bank in India, it was actually in Lahore, now the current Pakistan. So the first bank in India which was managed completely by Indians was the Punjab National Bank. And the first bank in India which was managed as well as owned and organized, controlled properly by Indians, was the Central Bank of India, and therefore it's called the first Swadeshi Bank, or the first truly Swadeshi Bank. So these 3 pointers, please remember. And the first governor of Reserve Bank of India was Osborne Smith, and the first Indian governor of the RBI was C.D. Deshmukh. These questions will of course discuss, but they are important because they come directly in your entrances and you need to be aware about them. Okay, and also remember that the Imperial Bank of India was renamed as State Bank of India in 1955. All right, so you can remember all these pointers. We'll of course be discussing that. Bank of Baroda has a maximum number of overseas branches. ICICI was the first bank to provide mobile ATM services, right? And Central Bank of India was the first public bank to introduce credit cards. It was the first public bank to introduce credit cards, okay? So these are all important questions on your screens that you see, and we'll of course be discussing them later as well. But do keep these questions in your head. They are directly asked in your entrances. Which of the following is a function of the Reserve Bank of India? Now, please remember
issue of bank notes. It is a banker to the government of India. It is the custodian of cash reserves of bank. That's absolutely correct. All the three are the functions of the Reserve Bank of India. When you talk about the Reserve Bank of India, it's a banker to the Indian government. It's a bank of the Indian government. It's also a bank for all the other banks. It's a custodian of all the other banks. It's the it's also responsible for issuing notes. As you can even see on your notes, there's this entire phrase written, issued by RBI. It is the lender of last resort for almost all the commercial banks. So you need to remember that the correct answer is all three of them. All three of them are the functions of the Reserve Bank of India. Let's look at some functions of the RBI. So the Reserve Bank of India, which is also called the banker to the government of India. So it's a banker to the government of India and all Indian banks, right? So it's literally the boss of all banks in India. So when you talk about the Reserve Bank of India, the Reserve Bank of India is the boss of all banks literally in India, right? Now, what are the few functions that are performed by the Reserve Bank of India? The first most important function of the Reserve Bank of India is it has to issue bank notes, right? It has to issue currency notes. Now, please remember there's a question which is asked, which is the only note which is not issued by the RBI. Okay, now which is the only note which is not issued by the RBI? It is a 1 rupee note, right? The 1 rupee notes are issued by the Ministry of Finance. Okay, so this is something that you need to remember. The RBI is having complete rights to issue currency notes except 1 rupee notes, which are issued by the Ministry of Finance. Please remember this. Currency notes are issued by the Reserve Bank of India, and this ensures what this results in. People have faith also in paper currency. It gets a lot of uniformity. It's very easy to supervise. These are the three important things that you need to remember. It is a banker to the government. Okay, it's managing the entire government account. It is maintaining how the government is operating. It's collecting funds. It's also making payments on behalf of the government. And the RBI is representing the government of India at the international platforms like the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. So it's RBI which represents the government of India. It's a custodian of cash reserves of commercial banks. Please remember that. Okay, so when you talk about commercial banks have to pay a percentage to the RBI. So it's also the custodian of cash reserves of commercial banks. Okay, so you need to remember that. That's important. So it's a custodian for all the commercial banks also. We'll be also looking at these important bodies again, but do keep all these things in mind. They're extremely crucial. It's a lender of last resort. So, for example, in the case of Yes Bank, also we saw very recently, the commercial banks are always there. They can always approach the Reserve Bank of India if they're having financial difficulties. And of course, RBI comes to their rescue at a high rate of interest, but nevertheless, it always comes to their rescue. So bankers bank, it is a banker for the government. It's regulating financial system. It's also issuing your currency notes, right? It's detecting fake currency. It's a banker to the government. So all these are some important functions of the RBI that you can see. Okay, who among the following is the 25th RBI governor? A very important question, which is many a time seen in most of your entrances. You need to remember that the 23rd, now just look at it because these are all important questions. The 23rd RBI governor has by far been the most popular governor, and he was Raghuram Rajan. Raghuram Rajan has written the book Fault Lines. Fault Lines was a beautiful book because it predicted. Raghuram Rajan became very popular because in 2005 only he had said that the way the economies are going in 2008 or around that time, you will definitely have a recession period. And that is what happened, right? So you need to remember that the 23rd RBI governor, Raghuram Rajan, he had already predicted the recession of 2008, and he's written the famous book Fault Lines, which is asked many times in your entrances. Okay, the second thing that you need to remember, so 23rd RBI governor is Raghuram Rajan, so that gets eliminated, right? The 24th 24th RBI governor, again very important, is Urjit Patel. And then when we talk about the 25th RBI governor, that's a governor at present, is your Shakti Kanta Das. So your Shakti Kanta Das, that's option number 3, is the correct answer here. He's the 25th RBI governor. He's the 25th RBI governor. So please remember this. He's from St. Stephen's College. So you can remember. And please remember Sir Osborne Smith. Sir Osborne Smith was the first ever governor of the Reserve Bank of India. He was the first ever governor of the Reserve Bank of India, right? Then you need to remember that C.D. Deshmukh was the first Indian governor of the Reserve Bank of India, right? He was the first Indian governor of the Reserve Bank of India. He saw the entire partition process also, and how finances were distributed during partition. All those things happened under him. So you need to remember this about C.D. Deshmukh. So the first governor is Osborne, right? So please remember, these are important points. But the first ever Indian governor is C.D. Deshmukh, okay, of RBI. Like I told you, Urjit Patel was your 24th governor of the Reserve Bank of India, right? And you have currently, when you talk about, I think we've missed one of them anyway, and the current one that you have is your Shakti Kanta Das. Shakti Kanta Das is the 25th governor of the Reserve Bank of India, right? So he's currently the Reserve Bank of India governor. That's your Shakti Kanta Das. He's a retired IS officer, and he's also from St. Stephen's College. Which of the following is the tagline of Punjab National Bank? The name you can bank upon. The name you can bank upon is the tagline of Punjab National Bank, which was the first ever Indian bank to be managed completely by Indians, right? First bank to be managed completely by Indians was Punjab National Bank. First bank which was managed as well as controlled as well as owned by Indians was the Central Bank of India. Therefore, Central Bank of India is called the first truly Swadeshi bank. Okay, do remember this. So the name you can bank upon is Punjab National Bank. Punjab National Bank, the name you can bank upon, that's the tagline that you can remember. So this is basically it is the second largest public sector bank in India. So do remember that. Which of the following terms are not used in the stock market? Now, MSF is the term that's not used as a technical term in stock markets. Markets are considered to be bullish. That means they are rising, bull, like a bull, okay? There's a word in English called ebullient, ebullient, E-B-U-L-L-I-E-N-T. Ebullient means you're very enthusiastic, you're very optimistic, you speak a lot. So from there also you can remember the word. So bull is always having, bull's always optimistic, right? And bearish market is when the markets are very slow. So currently, because of coronavirus, it's a bearish market, right? And you also have the term long stocks. Long stocks are when I want to invest for a long-term purpose. I'm not a broker who's just looking for instant profit, but I'm investing long-term. Just like, the shares of, you must have heard that someone who had equity or in Facebook is now like, almost a millionaire or a billionaire. So those are the kind of stories where they're looking at long stock investments, okay? So MSF is the correct answer. So stock market is a place where people who want to literally help the companies give the money, they're giving the money, they're investing the money, and they're doing this in exchange of your stocks as well as bonds which are there. So that's a stock market that's coming into picture. Of course, we need to remember that in India we have the Bombay Stock Exchange, the BSE, and the National Stock Exchange, which are very famous and important platforms for stock trading. Now here, when you talk about the technical term, you've got terms like agent, who's buying and selling shares. Shares are basically a part of the company, right? Broker, who's purchasing shares. Bear market is a place where the market is falling. It's in a bad shape. And bull market, where the market is positive. All right. Blue chip stock is of companies which are well established, like Tata's, Reliance. They're all blue chip stocks. That means these are stocks of the companies which are already very prestigious. They're already financially stable. Which of the following is India's oldest stock exchange? Now, very important question. People always get this wrong because we think, oh, it's a national stock exchange because it's very popular. The National Stock Exchange is as recent as 1992. It was set up and it started working even later. So you need to remember that. The correct answer here is the Bombay Stock Exchange. It's not the National Stock Exchange, but the Bombay Stock Exchange. The Bombay Stock Exchange was set up in 1875. 1875. The Madras Stock Exchange was in 1937. The Calcutta, it was earlier not called Kolkata Stock Exchange but Calcutta Stock Exchange. That was in 1908. So you need to remember that the Bombay Stock Exchange is the correct answer. So the BSE was established, like I told you, in 1975. It is Asia's first and fastest stock exchange in the world. Okay, it actually works at the speed of 6 microseconds, which is amazing, and this has been working for over 141 years, so you can remember that. And the vision of Bombay Stock Exchange is to emerge as a premier Indian stock exchange with best in class global practice in technology, products, innovation, and customer services. The National Stock Exchange, that's the NSE. Like I told you, NSE was set up in 1992 and it began its operations in 1994. Okay, so it was really late. And this is a national stock exchange, again located in Mumbai. You got the Calcutta Stock Exchange. The Calcutta Stock Exchange. This is the second oldest stock exchange in South Asia, and I told you that it was set up in 1908. Which among the following committees suggested to establish Insurance Regulatory Authority of India? IRDA is an important institute. Insurance Regulatory Authority of India, you need to remember about it, right? When you talk about the Insurance Regulatory Authority in India, this is the custodian. This is basically a team responsible for looking at proper transparency measures when you're talking about the insurance sector. So the Insurance Regulatory Authority in India, this was set up on the suggestions of the Malhotra Committee. Okay, so it was set up on the suggestions of the Malhotra Committee. This is important, remember this. So on the basis of the Malhotra Committee's suggestions, in 1999 the IRDA was formed. IRDA is basically standing for, many times you get the full forms of IRDA. IRDA is standing for Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. This is Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, IRDA, and this is of course there to regulate. It's a regulating, controlling body which is regulating the insurance industry, and it was incorporated in April 2000. Now, when we talk about the IRDA, that's the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. This is the apex. Apex, that's actually the topmost. It's the apex body which is responsible for regulating insurance sector. And you need to remember that its headquarters is in Hyderabad in Telangana. The current Telangana state. So it's an autonomous body, and this was based on the recommendations of R.N. Malhotra Committee. R.N. Malhotra Committee recommended the formation of the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. The primary purpose is, of course, to protect the interest of the policy holders, and it's, of course, giving proper registration certificates to insurance companies, right? It's regulating the entire process. It's ensuring that the policy holders are not at all being duped. So there's a proper transparency that is maintained by the Insurance Regulatory Authority in India, which was formed on the recommendations of your Malhotra Committee. Who among the following is the current president of the World Bank? When you talk about, none of these is the correct answer, because the current president of the World Bank is David Malpass. David Malpass is the correct answer. David Malpass. David Malpass is he's the current president of the World Bank. See, the World Bank, because America is having a major share, so mostly the president is an American only, all right? So the World Bank's executive directors select David Malpass as the 13th president of the World Bank Group. He's got a term of 5 years, okay? So he's the 13th World Bank president. You can remember David R. Malpass. David R. Malpass. Select the correct match. Now this is important. Please remember the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange that you have. This is the stock exchange of United States of America. So NASDAQ is United States of America. Euronext is standing for European New Exchange Technology. European New Exchange Technology. And this is, of course, there you can connect it with France. France can be the correct answer. This is European Exchange Technology. It's got its headquarters in Paris. Then coming on to the next one, SSE, that's Shanghai Stock Exchange. So Shanghai Stock Exchange is for China. So you can match it with China, Shanghai Stock Exchange, SSE. And then you've got the National Stock Exchange or the Bombay Stock Exchange, that's India. Okay, so you need to remember, of course, the stock exchanges of all the countries which are important. We'll look at it later also in your revision, but do keep this in mind. So, with this, there's a wrap on your banking awareness class assignment. Like I told you, the history of the banking sector is important. You need to remember about the Imperial Bank of India, the first bank managed by Indians, the first truly Swadesi bank. You need to know about the dates, what was the name later of the Imperial Bank, what are the taglines of the State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, how it is the second largest public sector bank, right? You need to remember all these details. Of course, the taglines are important. Knowing about the Reserve Bank of India is important. Stock markets, they're important, and their terms. Okay, so these are certain crucial things that you need to keep in your mind. If there are any doubts in banking awareness, please do let us know about checks, about types of deposits. All those are important questions also that we looked at, right? So with that, there's a wrap on this session. Thank you so much.
Hello and a very warm welcome. We are looking at your general awareness class assignment 4, and we're covering the topic of current affairs through the course of this session, right? So we're looking at your current affairs part 4 through the course of this entire video. Now you see certain questions, and please remember, whenever we talk about general awareness, you need to know that current affairs play a very important role. They play a very crucial pivotal role, and they can actually make sure that they are making or breaking your cutoff criteria. Also, remember the relevance of current affairs can also be seen in the subsequent rounds. For example, a couple of your colleges have the GDPI session, the GDPI round. So, for example, the group discussion and personal interview, they will definitely ask you questions to know that are you keeping pace with what's happening around the globe? Are you cognizant about the developments across India as well as internationally, globally? What are the trends which are emerging? Is there any natural hazard, like currently the health condition? So definitely you need to be aware, and current affairs are very important, not just to score well in your general awareness section but otherwise also in the subsequent rounds, right? Now let's just quickly dive into the questions that we have very briefly. Which Indian archer has won gold in women's individual recurve event of the 21st Asian Championships in Bangkok? Now you can see it from the image also, and I'm sure you must have guessed the answer by now. Deepika Kumari is the correct answer. So she's the Indian archer. As it is, Deepika Kumari is a very famous Indian archer. When you talk about archery, she's definitely one of the renowned names, and particularly when you're talking about women's individual recurve event. So here in the Asian Championships in Bangkok, Deepika Kumari won the gold medal, right? And there was Ankita also who won. So we'll see that. So Indian archers Deepika Kumari, she won the gold, while Ankita Bhagat, this is Ankita Bhagat, she bagged the silver medal. Okay, in the women's individual recurve event of the 21st Asian Championships in Bangkok. This was the 21st Asian Championships, right? So Deepika actually defeated Ankita 6-0 in one-sided final. Who designed the logo for the Apex Anti-Corruption Ombudsman Lokpal? Now, a couple of things that you need to be very clear. What do I mean by the word ombudsman? Ombudsman is a party that is helping you with your grievances. For example, if there's any sort of corruption that I have faced, any other grievance that I've faced, I can actually go to the ombudsman. We've got the banking ombudsman also. So, who has designed the logo for the Apex Anti-Corruption Ombudsman Lokpal? Now, the correct answer here is Prashant Mishra. He's a person from Prayagraj, and he was the one who designed the logo. Okay. Now, please remember the motto of Lokpal was designed by the committee itself. Okay. Lokpal, as you know, Lok is people, and Pal is a person who's protecting, and ombudsman is a person whom you can go to if you have any grievances such as corruption, if there are any problems that you're facing. So here the correct answer is Prashant Mishra. He has designed the logo for the Apex Anti-Corruption Ombudsman Lokpal. This is the Apex Anti-Corruption Ombudsman Lokpal. Okay, that's how the symbol looks like on your screen. The Anti-Corruption Ombudsman Lokpal, it's got its logo and motto finally. Logo Prashant Mishra has given, and motto has been developed by the committee members only. Okay. So the chairman of the Lokpal, this is also an important question. Who is the chairman of the Lokpal? It's Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh. Which is the correct answer. And the motto of the Lokpal is, please don't be greedy for anyone's wealth. Do not be greedy for anyone's wealth. Okay. And Prashant Mishra is from Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh. His logo was selected for the Lokpal. Okay. Lok means people and Pal means a caretaker. The caretaker of people is a Lokpal, right? And the motto, of course, like we've said, do not be greedy for anyone's wealth. That's the motto of Lokpal, which is your anti-corruption ombudsman. So here you can even see that the symbol is showing that, you know, the lok being taken care by the Pal, the caretaker. That's what the symbol is symbolizing. If you see the symbol over here, the Lokpal is taking care of the people, and there are colors of the Indian flag, saffron, white, and green also
coming into picture. Like I said, ombudsman is an official, it's a proper official who or the organization which is appointed to investigate individuals complaints against a company or organization. You've got banking ombudsman also, who investigate complaints of individuals against the banking sector. So ombudsman is basically an authority which is helping you with your grievances, helping you with your complaints, helping you with your problems. Okay, so this is an officially appointed committee for investigating complaints. Which state government has decided to launch Project Shakti to alert the public about crimes? Okay, this is Shakti. This is SHAKTI. There's a typo error here. It's not IT. Shakti. This is Shakti. So here, the Madhya Pradesh government in December 2019, at that time, you didn't have the reshuffle taking place in the cabinet, right? So you need to remember that also. The Madhya Pradesh government, it became the second government to launch a proper facility, an SMS facility called Shakti, to make sure that there's a decrease in the number of crime, particularly against women and children. So the Madhya Pradesh state government has decided to launch Project Shakti to alert the public about crimes. So Madhya Pradesh will become the second state in the country to launch a crime alert mobile app. This is a crime alert mobile app, right? So this will ensure that people who are committing the crimes are easily caught immediately, right? This is the Shakti alert. So for example, if you are in danger, you can immediately just put a button on the Shakti app, and automatically someone would be connected, or someone will at least find your last location. So this will expedite the process of the crime being either completely eliminated, or at least the criminals being found earlier. So the MP government has launched the SMS alerts about crimes to aid the public security. Section 377, which has been recently decriminalized, came into force in which year? Now, here, this particular, when we talk about Section 377, on 6th September 2018, there was a landmark bill. And when we talk about Section 377, which was prohibiting gay sex, this was something that was started in 1861. It was started in 1861. So, Section 377, which has been recently decriminalized, came into force in 1861. Sorry, it came into force in 1861. So on 6th September 2018, the Supreme Court of India, they have completely decriminalized Section 377, but in some cases they have kept 377, and we'll discuss in which all cases. According to the Indian Penal Code, the IPC, they have decriminalized homosexuality completely, right? Deepak Mishra was the Chief Justice of India, and they've scrapped this 156-year-old colonial era law which was banning gay sex, and which was making it punishable. There was a proper punishment for 10 years being imposed. So this was a law which was as old as 1861. Okay, so you can remember that this law 377, this was there in 1861. So 377 article was there in 1861, and it was scrapped finally. The government of India has proposed to merge which of the following banks to create India's third largest lender? Now, this is a very important development. Mostly in your group discussions, also you can get it. Later, when we'll do our revision, this will definitely be a part of it in detail. Now, when you talk about the government of India has proposed to merge with, you have your BOB, Bank of Baroda, you've got your Dena Bank, you've got your Vijaya Bank. So, actually, none of these is the correct answer. Option 4, none of these is the correct answer, because the government of India has proposed that they will be merging three banks: Vijaya Bank, Dena Bank, and Bank of Baroda. BOB. BOB is standing for Bank of Baroda. Okay, so Bank of Baroda, Vijaya Bank, and Dena Bank. These three will be merged, right, to create India's third largest lender. Okay, so at that particular point in time, the panel was headed by the finance minister, who was looking at the merger. Now, of course, he's no more there, but you can remember that the government of India had proposed to merge your Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank, and Vijaya Bank to create to create one of India's third largest lenders when we are talking about public sector banking. Which tech giant has launched K-12 education transformation framework to facilitate digital transformation of schools in India? Microsoft has always been at the forefront of such initiatives, right? So you need to remember here Microsoft becomes the correct answer. Microsoft is the tech giant that has launched the K-12 education transformation framework to facilitate digital transformation of schools in India, right? So they have launched the K to 12 education transformation to ensure that India safely transforms into a proper digital transformed school market, right? So here you can see the elaborate answer also. Microsoft has launched its K to 12 education transformation process. So earlier we have the old schools, and now to completely transform them into digital laboratories or digital schools, right? It is focusing on four pillars: leadership and policy, modern teaching and learning, intelligent environments, and technology blueprint, right? And this is already there in a couple of schools already, right, across the globe. And now, of course, they will be replicating it here in India. Which state government has launched the e-Ghana app for sugarcane farmers? For sugarcane farmers, the e-Ghana app has been launched by the Uttar Pradesh government. The Uttar Pradesh government has launched the e-Ghana app for sugarcane farmers. So Uttar Pradesh government has launched a dedicated web portal. This is for sugarcane farmers of the state, because you know the sugarcane supply can now be issued by farmers online itself. Like they can make sure that they are selling their products online. So therefore there is the e-Ghana app, right? e-Ghana app for that. The SANS campaign has been launched by which union ministry? This is launched, LAUNCHED. The G is not there. There has to be an H. There's a typo error here. The SANS campaign has been launched by which union ministry? The SANS campaign has been launched by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. By the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. That is option number 2. That's the correct answer. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So the Union Ministry for Health and Family Welfare, the Union Minister is Harshvardhan. He has launched the social awareness and action to neutralize pneumonia successfully. There are a lot of pneumonia deaths taking place in our country, especially when we're talking among children. And under this campaign, a child who's suffering from pneumonia can be treated, right? And there's this proper antibiotic drug called amoxicillin, which will be given by ASHA workers. So here, very important when you talk about the social awareness and action to neutralize pneumonia successfully. SANS is standing for social awareness and action to neutralize. Social awareness and action to neutralize pneumonia successfully. Right? So this particular SANS campaign, know the full form. This campaign, the SANS campaign has been launched by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare is Harshvardhan. Okay, so do remember, it's just to control the pneumonia deaths that are taking place in our country. So this campaign will ensure that children are pneumonia free at any cost, right? So SANS, social awareness and action to neutralize pneumonia successfully. So the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, that is your MOHFW, they have launched the SANS campaign. All right. This will definitely try to impact the child mortality rate due to pneumonia. Harshvardhan is important. Union Ministry for Health and Family Welfare is important. Social awareness and action to neutralize pneumonia successfully, SANS full form, is important. These are the 3 things that you must remember. Which country has recently approved the world's first drug for Alzheimer's disease, GV971? Now, China is the country. Please remember, whenever we talk about brain cells, right? Brain is a part of the organ where you have irreversible changes because the cells cannot renew themselves. So, Alzheimer is such a disease that really impairs the brain and the functioning of the brain, and you actually cannot even remember the most basic functions. So, China has taken an initiative. So China is the country which has approved the world's first drug for Alzheimer's disease, GV971. So China is the correct answer here. Alzheimer's is a disease that's harming your brain. It's literally having irreversible brain injury damages. So China is the one who's intervened. So China's National Medical Products Administration, that is NMPA, they have approved your oligomanate. Oligomanate is GV971. This is the new drug for the treatment of mild to moderate Alzheimer disease, AD. So when you talk about Alzheimer disease, this is of course a disease that's literally having irreversible brain disorder that's slowly, literally taking away your memory, your ability to think, your capability to carry out simple tasks. So China is the country that has approved the world's first drug for Alzheimer's disease, GV971. Which Indian personality has been conferred 2019 ABLF Global Asian Award? What is the ABLF Global Asian Award? This is the Asia Business Leadership Award. This is the Asia Business Leadership Award, and as you can see over here in the image, this has been awarded to Kumar Mangalam Birla. So Kumar Mangalam Birla is a personality who has been conferred the 2019 Asia Business Leadership Award. Asia Business Leadership Award. So Kumar Mangalam Birla, who's a chairman of Aditya Birla Group, he was conferred the Asia Business Leadership Global Award, right? For this was for powerful individuals whose business footprint and commitment to excellence is definitely has been commended. So Kumar Mangalam Birla is a chairman of Aditya Birla Group. He has received the Asia Business Leadership Award. So this was there in United Arab Emirates. And here you can remember that Kumar Mangalam Birla is the correct answer. Which city was the venue for the first ever Global Aviation Summit? The first ever Global Aviation Summit took place in Mumbai. This was in Mumbai. The GAS 2019. Just remember this. This is important. The GAS 2019 was in Mumbai. Okay, so remember the Civil Aviation Minister Suresh Prabhu, he inaugurated your GAS 2019 in Mumbai. Suresh Prabhu, who's a Civil Aviation Minister, he inaugurated your GAS 2019. All right, so when you talk about the GAS 2019, that's a Global Aviation Summit 2019. This was held in Mumbai and this was the first of its kind. Okay. Who is the head of SEBI, Securities Exchange Board of India? Who is the head of SEBI committee to link research to policy making? Shankar Dey is the correct answer. He's the head of SEBI committee to link research to policy making. So in order to strengthen research functioning and making sure that there is a link to policy making, right, you've got the research advisor committee headed by Dr. Shankar Dey, right? So the Securities and Exchange Board of India, they've recently constituted a research advisory committee so that their research function can be strengthened. This will be headed by Dr. Shankar Dey, right? The RAC will be headed by Research Advisory Committee. RAC will be headed by Shankar Dey. So that whatever research you're conducting and there's a policy being made that should actually impact people, right? So basically, to link research to policy making, Shankar Dey has been appointed as the head for the Research Advisory Committee of SEBI. So here we've looked at important questions, right? Current affairs are important. Here you saw some different questions which were based on initiatives, which were based on sports, which were based on government schemes. So schemes and all will always be important. That's how you've got this magazine issued by the government, Yojana, which is so important because Yojana is telling you about important schemes of the government. So they're definitely important and you need to keep all these things in mind. If in case there are any doubts in today's session, please do let us know. Otherwise, do revise this and make sure that you're aware about each and every point. Thank you so much.
Hello and a very warm welcome. We are looking at General Awareness Class Assignment 4, and here we are covering world bodies. Now, there's a segment in your assignment that is dealing with world bodies and public sector undertakings. Now, always remember whenever you have problems, right, you usually go to your friends or you consult your parents, right? You have a proper deliberation also at times if you have to take a decision for which course to opt, which coaching to go for, right? So essentially, similar problems are faced by countries also, and therefore, you've got these international bodies. Particularly, these world bodies are very important, and United Nations is the most important fulcrum, right? And United Nations was formed after there was this terrible World War II, which had literally ruined the entire world. There were so many nations ruined all over. Some were connected directly, some were connected indirectly. For example, Indians were there who were fighting, right? So India was affected indirectly in the Second World War. So that is how we have these world bodies coming together. For example, we've got this association called BRICS, which India is a part of. So this is an association which is of developing countries which can strengthen their pace of development by making sure that they try to synergize. That means they try to work together. And probably if I will take 5 years to do it myself, I might as well take your help, and both of us coming together can reach the goal in far much shorter span of time. So whenever we talk about world bodies, public sector undertakings in India, there are very important questions that come directly. So you need to be aware about these questions, right? In world bodies, bodies like the United Nations, the ASEAN, the SARC, the BRICS, the G7, the G8, the G20, these are some important details that you need to definitely remember, okay? Without further ado, let's just quickly get into the questions. The first question that you have: which of the following was the first to be established? Now, when you talk about the United Nations, this was established on the 24th of October 1945 after the World War II had literally ruined so many nations, right? And therefore, you've got 24th October celebrated as the United Nations Day, right? And remember, 2020 will mark the 75th anniversary of United Nations, right? So 2020 will actually mark the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, right? Let's just see how COVID spans out, but otherwise it will mark the 20th anniversary. So you've got the United Nations, which was in 1945. You've got the non-aligned movement. So this is when the entire world was actually divided between two important groups. There was a Cold War taking place between the USA, that's the United States of America bloc, and the USSR, that's the Soviet Union, the current Russia that you have. So that was a non-aligned movement. You've got the NAM, which was set up in 1961. India was a pioneering nation. India said, nothing doing, we're not supporting anyone, because it never wanted to side either America or Russia, because both were equally important. League of Nations is the correct answer here, because this was set up in 1920. BRICS is fairly new. This was in 2006. So the United Nations 1945, NAM 1961, League of Nations 1920, and BRICS 2006. So automatically you can, if you do your math correctly, if you put the numbers in ascending or descending orders, you'll come to know that the League of Nations is the first to be established. So can you just see, they can give you these questions where none of the bodies have any correlation, but you need to know their date of formation, their date of starting operation, who's the current chairman, president, or which country would they have that summit in. These are all important things that you need to be aware about. Important headquarters, right? So in 1945, nations were completely ruined. Second World War was over, and the world actually wanted peace. That's when you have the United Nations coming into picture. And the United Nations is the biggest and the most trusted international organization currently, right? This was set up right after the Second World War, and it was basically looking at the entire idea of peace in the world. It wanted to promote peace in the entire world, right? So this is something that you need to remember. Peace, cooperation among nations, so that a third world war never comes up, right? Well, at that particular point in time, you need to remember that was formed with countries coming in, and there are 193 members currently, which are a part of the United Nations. That's literally most of the countries. India was, of course, one of the founder countries of the United Nations, right? And currently, India is aspiring to get a permanent membership in the Security Council of the United Nations. Currently, India is not a part of the permanent members team in the Security Council of United Nations. The five permanent members are China, UK, USA, France, and Russia. Okay, and you need to remember this point that fiscally India is one of United Nations biggest contributors. We contribute in like, in terms of being a developing country, we still contribute immensely, the most that we can. Okay, so you need to remember all these points, that we are looking, we are vying, we literally want to get, and the Indian government has been making important, they have been taking these important steps to get permanent membership of the Security Council of the United Nations. Okay, now, there are other important international bodies also. Before we go to the next question, you've got the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. You get many questions from these two organizations also. The IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund. This was created in 1945 in Washington, D.C. And when you talk about IMF or the World Bank is an amalgamation of five important companies coming together. We'll speak up five important associations coming together. We'll talk about them also in a question. And both these important international bodies have got an aim of ensuring that there is economic cooperation in the world. There is economic cooperation in the world, right? IMF is providing support to the countries which require the monetary support, right? And it keeps on getting contributions. Whereas when you talk about the World Bank is having the entire dream to eradicate poverty. They want to eradicate extreme poverty. So when you talk about the World Bank is having this entire objective of making sure that the world is poverty free. That's their main objective, right? And therefore you would see that they literally contribute a lot to they really contribute a lot in the underdeveloped countries, and particularly in initiatives like building schools, hospitals, sanitations, right? The World Trade Organization, this is a fairly new organization, the WTO. This is an intergovernmental organization that was established by the Marrakesh Agreement. The Marrakesh Agreement, this is important. The Marrakesh Agreement on the 15th of April 1994. Okay, this is basically for trade negotiations, as the word itself suggests. If you look at the word World Trade Organization, so that the world can come together and ensure that they are trading together. So this is for trading negotiations basically. BRICS, of course, it's very recently founded in 2006. These are five important countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa coming together because these are developing countries, right? These are developing countries. So India is a developing country, and similarly, Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa are equally a part of this association. So BRICS is the acronym for these countries together, and they want to protect their economic rights and interests in the global economy. They're coming together, right? And of course, these countries' total contribution to the global economy is almost 41%, which is like a huge amount. Five countries giving the world 41% of the global economy. That's a huge percentage. BRICS summits are there. You get questions from BRICS summits. You need to be aware about them. Moving on to the second question from the assignment: where is the headquarters of the United Nations? Don't worry, we'll cover most of these important international bodies also. But for the moment, focus on the questions also, because this will set a base. This will build an interest for you, and these are some questions that you will see directly coming in your papers also. Where is the headquarters of the United Nations? The United Nations headquarters in New York. So New York is the correct answer. The United Nations is headquartered in the New York City, all right? So you can remember this.
Which of the following is a cultural organization? Now, please remember UNESCO. UNESCO was founded in 1945. This is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Education (ESCO), Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. This is based in Paris, France, right? And you need to remember that this is a cultural organization. This is a cultural organization, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. The name itself has cultural organization, CO. Okay, it was founded in 1945. The World Health Organization, International Labour Organization, and FAO, these are not cultural in nature. FAO is also important. When you talk about FAO, the main objective of FAO is fight PANIS. Fight PANIS is let there be bread for everyone. This is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, right? So the Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. This is a special agency of the UN that is trying to defeat hunger. And the motto is let there be bread. Let there be bread is fight PANIS. That means you literally need to fight hunger. You need to fight hunger. Let there be bread. Let there be no person who's hungry, right? So let there be bread or fight PANIS, right? It's also a member of the United Nations Development Group. So that's your FAO, right? Food Agricultural Organization. It wants to fight hunger. Which of the following is not associated with the UNO? The United Nations Organization has International Labour Organization, ILO, International Labour Organization, WHO, World Health Organization, but third option is not a part of United Nations Organization. This is your Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Association of Southeast Asian Nations, that's Asian. India is not a member of ASEAN. There are 11 countries, but India is not a member of Asian country. Why? Because India is not in Southeast Asia, right? You need to remember this, okay? So it's an association of Southeast Asian nations, right? Like Malaysia, etc. So India is not a part of that territory, okay? So you need to remember this. So the Asian is not associated with UNO, and Asian's headquarters is in Jakarta, Indonesia. Asian's headquarters is in Jakarta, Indonesia. Remember that, okay? So the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, this is a regional intergovernmental organization, right? And these members which are there, they're all part of Southeast Asia. India is not a member. Please remember that, okay? So these are the Asian countries that you have. You've got Burma, you've got Brunei, you've got Cambodia, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, right? So these are the countries which are a part of your Asian countries, right? Which of the following was formed by the amalgamation of 5 financial institutes, namely IBRD, IFC, IDA, MIGA, and ICSID? This is the World Bank. World Bank has the entire motto of defeating poverty, extreme poverty, fighting against extreme poverty. Okay, remember that. So which of the following was formed by the amalgamation of 5 financial institutes? So that is the World Bank. That is the World Bank. Please remember, World Bank is the correct answer. The goal of World Bank is to end extreme poverty. So the ICSID, along with the IBRD, that's your International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, along with IDA, International Development Association, along with IFC, International Finance Corporation, and MIGA, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So all these 5 come together to form the World Bank Group. They come together to form the World Bank Group. And the goal is to end extreme poverty, right? And they're all these 5 organizations. So please remember, World Bank is an amalgamation. It's a coming together of these 5 important organizations: the IBRD, the IDA, the IFC, as well as the ICSID. Okay, they are important, and you need to remember that World Bank is an amalgamation. All these organizations have their own functions, but ultimate goal of World Bank is to end extreme poverty. Which country among the following does not hold the veto power in the Security Council of United Nations? India is the correct answer. As I told you at the beginning also of this session, that India is a country which is still vying for getting permanent membership. Only permanent members have the veto power. Okay, only permanent members have the veto power. So India is the correct answer. The United Nations Security Council veto power, this refers to the power of the five permanent members such as China, Russia, France, United Kingdom, and the US. What is the expansion of E in OPEC? OPEC is standing for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, right? So, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So, E is standing for fourth, exporting. Remember, we looked at dinar, Kuwaitian dinar, Bahraini dinar, Oman's currency, and Jordan's currency being higher than the British pound sterling. So, remember, these are all oil exporting, these are all countries which are having petroleum exports, right? So this is basically OPEC is standing for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, this is an intergovernmental organization of 14 nations, which was founded on the 14th September 1960 in Baghdad, right? Which of the following countries was admitted in G7, converting it into G8? Okay, now earlier it was basically G6. All right, so like I told you, if you have problems, you go, you meet your friends, you meet your parents, right? You're forming a group together. Similarly, nations also do that, right? So earlier there were only G6 countries, then Canada came together and it was G7, and then later Russia also joined in and it became G8, right? Now after that, what happened? Russia was expelled, making it again G7. All right, so you need to remember Russia is the correct answer. Russia was admitted, converting G7 into G8, converting G7 into G8. So G7 was standing for a group of 7 countries which were industrialized nations, right? And the group became G8, or the group of 8. But remember, Russia was excluded later. Russia was excluded because it had annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Why was the G7 created? This was created for annual gathering of political leaders to discuss and exchange ideas, right? They're coming together because they were industrialized. France, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, United States, and West Germany were there. And later Canada joined, and after that Russia joined. But the question was, how did G7 become G8? So G7 became G8 with Russia coming into picture, and then Russia was excluded later, and G6 became G7 because Canada was added. Okay, Canada joined. What do we mean by Interpol? Interpol is your International Criminal Police Organization. International Criminal Police Organization. This is Interpol. This is for ensuring that there's proper agility when you talk about the reporting of crimes, right? So, this is the International Criminal Police Organization. This is an association of over 100 national police forces who are looking at fighting international crime. Okay, so Interpol, International Criminal Police Organization. International Criminal Police Organization. BRICS. Now, if you read this question, this is a very simple question, and we've discussed this also. BRICS, which was formed in 2006, this is an association of 5 major emerging national economies. Option 3. Very simple question. You should have got this right, right? It's an association of 5 major emerging national economies. Okay. If there are any doubts which you're facing, please make sure that you make a note of it and you get back to us with your doubts. All right. The next G20 summit will be held at the next G20 summit, that's the 2020 summit, will be in Riyadh. So none of these is the correct answer, and next year it'll be in Italy. All right. God knows how will that be possible. Of course, the COVID disaster will obviously get better in the coming times. So the next G20 summit this year will be in Riyadh. So none of these is the correct answer. The 2020 G20 summit, this is basically G20, group of 20 countries, 20 nations, will be in Riyadh summit, will be a Riyadh summit. This will be the 15th meeting of the G20 group, right? And the date currently is 21 to 22nd November 2020. Riyadh is the capital of Saudi Arabia. India is not a part of which of the following association? India is not a part of the Asian countries. Asian is standing for Association of Southeast Asian Nations. India is not a part of it, right? But India is a part of BRICS. India is one of the founding members of the United Nations. India is included in SAARC, that's your South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. India is a part of SAARC, but India is not a part of ASEAN. So fourth answer is the correct answer. India is not a part of the ASEAN. India is not a part of the ASEAN. You need to remember that. So India is not a member of ASEAN, as it is the Southeast Asian Countries Organization, right? So you need to remember this. Where is the headquarters of ADB, Asian Development Bank, located? This is in Philippines. So Asian Development Bank is having its headquarters in Philippines, Manila, Philippines, right? Philippines is the correct answer. The Asian Development Bank, this is a regional development bank which is having its headquarters in Philippines. Philippines, all right? Remember this. Which of the following countries is not a member of ASEAN? Now, even if you look at this question, we've said ASEAN is basically Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Association of Southeast Asian Nations, right? Now, if you look at it, Canada is not an Asian country at all, right? So Canada will be the correct answer. Canada is not a member of Asian countries, right? So Canada is out of the question. Which of the following is not a Maharatna company? We'll of course look at these questions also when we revise them. But when you talk about, you've got Maharatna status being given to Gas Authority of India Limited, Coal India Limited, Steel Authority of India Limited. However, Airport Authority of India is a mini Ratna. All right, this is not a Maharatna, it's a mini Ratna. Airport Authority of India is a mini Ratna. Please remember that. It's not a Maharatna, this is a mini Ratna. Okay, so here we particularly looked at your international bodies. We will discuss them in greater details also once when your live classes are starting. But what I want you to do now is set up a base when you're looking at it. I hope you know by now that the UN is important for you. I hope you know that ASEAN is important, BRICS is important, G20 is important, the summits that are taking place are important, right? So we'll of course discuss them in greater details from your exam point of view, but setting up this base is extremely crucial. Some of your entrances will just have these kind of questions, okay? So please make sure that you look at them. If there are any doubts that you face, do get back to us. We'd be more than happy to solve your doubts. Till then, thank you so much and happy learning.